Riverbend Awareness Project.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast episode are solely those of the individuals participating and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Riverbend Media Group or the Riverbend Awareness Project, its affiliates, or its employees. It is important to note that the discussion presented is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified healthcare professionals for any medical concerns or decisions. The Riverbend Awareness Project is a product of Riverbend Media Group.
Welcome back to the Riverbend Awareness Project. This month we are talking about water safety and drowning prevention, which is very important and kind of been top of mind in our community for a little bit. And we are so glad to have Sergeants Mike Vasquez and Brian Lovell.
Yeah.
I was going to say it
Close
right, and then I doubted myself, from the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office. Thanks
for having us.
for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
So we'll just dive right in.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there different hazards in different bodies of waters, like lakes compared to rivers and different things like that?
Absolutely. So, just here in Bonneville County, we have Palisades Reservoir. We have Blacktail, and well, it's all Ryrie Reservoir, but you have Blacktail and the Juniper side of Ryrie Reservoir, which are still man-made reservoirs. They're the water fluctuates. It comes in fed from the rivers and the runoffs. Gets cold, gets murky, gets brown, then it gets beautiful and clear, and then it gets pushed out to whatever the farmers need. And then, of course, we have the Snake River. And the Snake River has its own challenges and dynamics and everything that we have that. And then we have a ton of irrigation systems. We are an agricultural county. And so all our canal systems run full from early May through end of October. And everything has kind of a water dynamic that we have here in Bonneville County. That's why we have so many water resources just in our county alone.
And they get those conditions, the hazards and things, they change throughout. They can change according to what the flow is at the time.
Yeah.
And they change a little bit every year. The Snake River, especially
it's always
currents,
changing.
it's always changing. It might be
Always
subtle,
changing.
it might be real significant sometimes, but there's a constant unknown amount of hazards out there.
So the constant is that it's never constant.
Yeah,
It's
correct.
always
There you go.
changing.
Yeah.
So don't always be like, oh, it's like this. So it's
I
Some
swam
people-
here before.
Yeah, some people call it the canal, and some people call it's just a canal, the Snake River, or I swam in that same spot. We've had a lot of communities saying, "Oh, I swam in that spot; it's not so bad," or I swam there one time. And well, if you haven't had a whole lot of water that day, or if the water is real cold coming from the runoff, or if anything can happen on the river, and it's got to respect it.
Yes. I've had plenty of scares on the river
It's over.
Can get your attention in a hurry. Yeah.
Keeps your attention.
really quick.
You got to respect it.
I avoid the water, but that's not a healthy relationship with it either. Avoiding it, you should have fun, but you should be respectful.
Respect it.
Yeah. What are some kind of warning signs that the water conditions are unsafe to people? I mean, you might not always have them, but
Sure.
what are some that you can look for?
So, like this time of year, water clarity tells you a bunch of stuff. So
Okay.
if you can see clear, you don't have a whole lot of all these runoff creeks and everything coming off the mountains. When it's murky and brown and full of debris, there's a lot of water coming down right now. Currently, what we're dealing with conditions right now, we have a lot of debris and murky water that's not real clean and clear currently in the area we're working. But like up in the South Fork, it's very clear. They're really not pushing. They're pushing quite a bit of water, but there's not a lot of runoff coming into the reservoir. We're only at 40%, and so they don't even think we're going to get higher than that. So the runoff has come in and didn't mucky up the lake. If the lake's not mucky up, then it's clear for the rivers, and it's usually pretty good. That's a good sign that real brown and dirty, fast water, stay out of it. Clear, and you can see the bottom and everything that's going on. It's very controlled, and we can see better with that. Not much of a hazard.
Yeah, it helps. The difference in helping people identify what hazards are there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Being able to see the bottom, like,
Oh,
okay, that
God.
doesn't look so fun.
I mean, and sometimes that river, even times of the year when it's clearest, like your visibility is still pretty limited. I mean,
We call it
arm's
braille
length at
diving.
best, but
Yeah.
we usually
Yeah.
dive by feel and not by sight. We can't usually see what's there.
You can't see very far through there.
Not in the river. So a good clarity day on Ryrie or on Palisades, our divers will have anywhere between 5 to 10 feet of good visibility, and even more sometimes. And then, depending on the time of year, if there's an algae bloom or it's the beginning of the spring, most of the time they're just what you can see out in front of your hands. And sometimes you can't even see your hands in front of your face mask.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
And then you're at the mercy of the current.
Yeah.
In the river, especially.
Yeah.
You're just,
Which is a good thing
go.
sometimes because it tells you where you're at. Because a lot of times it's disoriented and you can't see.
Yeah.
So if you blow bubbles in front of your mask and they go up, or you blow bubbles and they go to your behind you, or you're blowing bubbles and it's going in front of you, know where you're at in the current. Because sometimes it can be very disorienting because you don't have, like I can see across this room, but if we turned off all the lights, I wouldn't be. You're feeling what you're seeing.
You don't know what's up, down.
So your lights on your
points.
mask are pointing out, and you can blow bubbles. And okay, bubbles are going downstream. If I can't feel that against me, or if I'm upside down, the bubbles are going across the front of my mask up, or they're going down. It's a weird disorienting feeling for divers. So
That's good to know. So clarity,
water clarity, speed. If you can see a bunch of what we call standing waves, if there's a bunch of motion in the water and it's not a clear, mirrored lake or a mirrored water where there's not a lot of flow to it, and there's not a lot of churning, like you see boils, we call them boil lines, and that's just the water going down at an angle and coming back up, or it's hitting something and it's making the water revolve, and that's what some people call it the undertow, where the water's coming up and boiling over.
Yeah.
It looks like a big boil wall. It's hitting something and it's creating that spin, either the bottom of the river or something in the side of the channel, and it's creating those dynamics, and especially waves. Waves are telling you that the water's really moving good, and it's either choking down on something or it's taking a big drop in elevation, and that's where you get these big, what we call standing waves or the wave train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What basic swim ability should somebody have before they go out and get in the water?
I looked at that question. I was like,
Yeah.
Some people don't think about things
right,
like that.
right. Like
do,
they'll get into a pool that's 88 degrees and a clear bottom, and there's a lifeguard standing by, and they don't have the stress
Yeah.
of the water that's around you. Current water temperature in Idaho Falls on the Snake River currently is 58 degrees. And
That's still too cold for
me.
We would see a big change. We won't see a big change in that because the water's moving. Ryrie currently is anywhere between 63 to 65 degrees on the surface,
Yeah.
but 10 or 20 feet down, we call it a thermocline. It's 52 degrees, and it's a big, big change. And so reservoirs create thermoclines, so you'll have really hot water on the top and you have cold water sitting on the bottom. And we talk about the lake flipping, or as the colder water starts to warm up, it starts to do this rotation, and you get the weird smells and all the stuff that's coming off the bottom.
Yeah.
It's a big rotation. So the thermoclines in reservoirs, and you can see it as a diver, as you're starting on the surface and you've got pretty good clarity and the water's pretty decent, you can just see it, and all of a sudden there's a line and it's dark. And you can put your hand down to the bottom, it's really cold, and the other hand can be warm. And as soon as you hit that thermocline against your face or your head, usually what gives divers the headaches, because there'll be a nice warm water in their work and they'll get into a thermocline and it's 20 degrees colder. Just 5 feet.
Instantly. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So rivers stay pretty constant. We see a good change. We've had a good, where we're currently working in the river for the last week and a half, we've seen the 58 degree to 61, depending on Saturday. We saw some pretty warm temperatures with some good sunlight and some surface warming, but it's pretty constant at 50, and it ain't going to change for most of the year on the river.
It stays that way pretty
It
constantly
does.
through
Yep.
the year.
Until the reservoirs get real hot and they start to flip over and they do other things, we will see that temperature.
How does that impact someone's swimming
ability?
Yeah.
So let's talk about cold water. Cold water immersion. We talk about, and we teach a water safety class in all the District 93 high school classes in their lifetime sports classes. And we talk about cold water safety. And so I always tell people when I run into them with no life jackets and they got their kids in the boat or they're swimming in a raft or whatever like that, you could be the best swimmer in the world. You could be Michael Phelps. And you've swam in pools, right? So if you get into water that's 58 degrees, what does that do to your muscles? Everything starts to get tightened up. And even the best swimmers, we have a trick we do in ice rescue between the firemen and the cops who can stay in the ice water the longest and self-rescue themselves, get themselves out of the ice without any assistance. It's about 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, and they can't get out. And so when I tell people, hey, if you're swimming in cold water and you have a problem, if you don't have a life jacket on or somebody there to help you, that 911 call hasn't even come in. And once it comes in, it's got to go through a dispatch center. And then that dispatch center's got to tell us, okay, what section of the county? And then what response is going? Is it IF Fire? Is it Central Fire? Is it Swan Valley Fire? Is it the sheriff's office? And then they got to make that call out over the radio. And then if there's any swimmers on duty or it's not SAR members, excuse me.
Dive
team members.
guys, yeah.
And so if they're on duty, great. And then we have to send out an alert since if they're not on duty, and we have to activate the whole team, and they got to be coming from their house or their T-ball game, whatever the case may be. And so our quickest response and save was 28 minutes. You have to survive for 28 minutes on the water. And there isn't a swimmer I know that can swim in ice cold water or really cold water, and especially panicked or injuries or anything else that would stand that. And so if you don't have the precautions such as a life jacket, or you don't have help, or if there isn't civilians standing by, you're in a lot of trouble.
And that's talking, pretty much best case scenario.
Best case
if you're
scenario.
in water that's not high current.
Yeah.
That's without other factors in line, because those factors start compiling and magnifying your problem rather quickly.
Very quickly.
So and you're talking, cops and firefighters in training, and they know it's cold, they know what's coming. Someone that goes into the water, that it's that initial shock to the system
Takes your
that
breath
eats up
away.
time.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's cold water shock. It's intense.
You could, if you're prepared for that, that's going to be helpful. But in general, most people are pretty surprised when they end up in the water unexpectedly, and then they've got to deal with all those other factors: the current taking them, boats and other floating objects hitting them, and whether or not somebody even sees that they went in to
Let's
call
say
for
you
help.
are in a state mine. Well, a lot of our accidents are alcohol. That's a couple questions down the way. But if you're thinking clearly and cohesively and everything
Yeah.
else that's going on.
Yeah, that they're so just for as many unknown hazards as there could be there,
Yeah.
you've got a lot of unknown factors that you're gonna have to deal with as soon as you hit the water.
I feel like that's perfect for our next transition, because we talked about like swimming ability, and it's even
Yeah.
like people who are the best
The best.
swimmers.
Mhm.
There's factors that are gonna it doesn't matter because it's
Yeah.
Your muscles are just not going to work.
yeah, that's
You're used to be able to swim real fast or
Mhm.
tread water for 15, 20, 30 minutes. You add the fear factor, the cold factor, injury possibly, whatever the case may be. I mean, we're given the best case scenario. If you're the best swimmer, the best thing else, and we teach that in the water safety class for the high school kids. I make them jump in the water and tread water by themselves, and I pass a 10-pound swim brick, and I said, that's your baby. Keep your baby out of the water. Because that's the most common thing I hear when people say, I'll be able to hold my child out of the water. I will be able to tread water and hold my child. And when we see these life jacket infractions, or we see things that are unsafe, I'm like, man, I wish I had a swim brick for every time I say, okay, jump in the water and just hold this. Just 10 pounds. 10 pounds. And that's an infant. I mean, that's a neonate. It's very small. Most with their toddlers or their 1-year-old that can't swim and they can't survive on their own, and you're trying to save them and yourself without any type of aid. And I see the panic in these kids' face, and we send them up in a circle, and they got to pass it just twice, and they got to swim for like 30 seconds, and they just panic, and the baby drops, and they drop, and then we make them swim back to me, and then I throw a whole bunch of life jackets out there, and then I said, all right, go find a life jacket you're going to put on in case of an emergency, and that's if a boat flips or if I end up in the water and I'm trying to grab something. So they go try to put that on, then I throw the baby back in. I said, all right, now hold the baby up, and then with a life jacket and aided, their face, they smile, they giggle, it passes around, they can do it all day long. And it's one of the things we teach them. Wear a damn life jacket.
Just having that jacket to just, like, all it does is keep you up at least your head above the water, so
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
function in other ways as much as
As
possible.
long as this is above water,
Yeah.
we can help you. If this isn't above water, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
perfect segue into life jacket basics. So we all need to know,
Yeah.
and then how do you make sure it's on you properly? And
You
gonna
bet.
stay on
So
you?
there's a couple things in Idaho. We have a bunch of boating restrictions for life jackets, and that's any vessel that can carry you across the water. You tie 3 logs together, put a sun umbrella and a lawn chair on it, and take off across the reservoir. There's certain things you have to have on board with you, and that one is a life jacket. Proper size and fit, readily accessible, and U.S. Coast Guard approved. Those are the 3 regulations that we require for each life jacket on person. And so depending on the boat size, if it's less than 19 feet, then anybody under the age of 14 has to wear that life jacket while the boat's moving. Now, if the boat's moored up, or if you're anchored up and just swimming off it, the kids don't have to wear them. If the boat's over 19 feet, nobody has to wear a life jacket. Even the 2-year-old, nobody does. As long as it's over 19 feet, but everybody has to have one. Readily accessible, proper size and fit, and U.S. Coast Guard approved. So you see these big ski boats, these huge ski boats that have a 20-person capacity. And on those sizes, that nobody has to wear a life jacket. Now, I've been a boater all my life. My boys are over 18 and still 20, and they still wear their life jacket when the boat's out there, and I still wear mine because you just never know when the problems exist. But by law, so we see a lot of that. So the paddle boards, the kayaks you buy at Costco, the stand-on or the sit-on kayaks, the fishing kayaks have been really popular. A lot of people realize that those are vessels defined by the state of Idaho, and you're required to have a life jacket on board. We'd love to see you wear it because you know I can give countless stories. We just had a drowning a couple of days ago in Bear Lake County, a 17-year-old boy on a stand-up paddleboard, but he wasn't wearing a leash. And the wind picked up, and the paddleboard went out from underneath him, and the water was cold. And they said he lasted about 15 minutes and then drowned. And he didn't have a life jacket, and the leash that was attached to his paddleboard that would have kept him afloat floated away, and he couldn't catch it with the wind and drowned. And so we encourage it. But they always say is the best life jacket. The life jacket's going to save your life. It's the life jacket you wear, and they make them so nice now. I wear an inflatable life jacket. It's a hydrostatic, so if I were to fall in the water, it's automatically going to explode. The one I wear on duty, I can manually inflate it. They make them for fanny packs. You can, if you don't want to screw up your tan lines, if you got something going on. So it fits in a fanny pack, and it's like the airplane one. You put it over your head, you cinch the strap, and pop it with a CO2 cartridge, and it'll float you. I always refer to the kids, and I always outdate myself when I'm in the high schools, as Tommy Boy. When he's on the airplane giving the instructions on how to do the seat belts, and he pops the life jacket and about chokes him out. It's impressive. It really floats you out. Yeah. So proper size and fit. What they tell you is and that's part of the rules, is it's properly sized and fit. So all the buckles have got to be in good working condition. It's got to come across your chest. The life jackets have got to meet, and for the straps can come across. And the best thing you can do if it's a little kid is just pick them up by the shoulder straps of the life jacket. And if they don't come over their shoulders, they're good. If you want to jump them in the water, we'll have them jump in the water. As long as the shoulder straps don't come up to above their head, they're staying within the life jacket, and that's a proper size and fit. The new life jacket requirements from the Coast Guard, they've gone away from types. We have 5 types of life jackets. Now they just go by weight and chest size. So if you have a small child, it's a 50. And then they go all the way up to 120 for us big boys, and big chest sizes. And so they used to be called type 1, 2, and 3, and 4 and 5. Now they go by chest sizes and regulations. And you'll see them, all the sports stores sell all the newest Coast Guard approved life jackets out there, and they have a 60, a 70, 80, 90, 120, and then like infant toddler sizes numbers. They don't use sizes anymore.
Leaning on the side of safety is just so important with all of that.
And if you can't put it on, hold on to it.
Yeah. The regulations are vary in the size of boat and age and all that, but what we've seen in these accidents that we have on the river, those things happen real fast. Just like we were talking, the shock to the system, and you don't necessarily have time to go, okay, everything's flipped over. How do I get to that thing? How do I get it on while I'm trying to stay above
Favorite
water?
thing to do is pull up to those boats and I say, all right, everybody show me a life jacket you're going to wear in case of an emergency. And they're lifting up the engine compartments, and they're ripping them out of plastic, and they're tucked under the bow, and they're in the seat cushions, and nobody's got their life jacket that they would usually wear, and they're drying it on the ski rack, and it's all belted up.
It's arguable about what's readily accessible there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, why, if you're out there, especially if you're operating that boat and you're responsible for the other people that are on that boat, why wouldn't you want to lean on the side of safety there?
Yeah. If you see someone in danger in the water, what's the best way to help them?
So I talked about this. I kind of thought about this. So we have a rescue priorities, or how we would rescue. It's called reach, row, throw, go. So reach is the first one. If I can stay dry and perform a rescue or help somebody, that's a good day. Mm-hmm. I ain't got to strip down and go in after them. That's a good day. So we talk about the reach method. So the reach method could be all the patrolmen in the sheriff's office carry a throw bag. And that throw bag is a 75-foot spool of rope. You dip that bag in the water and you throw them. You reach them or I skip myself here. Reach would be something like a car antenna or a branch of a tree or
PVC pipe.
PVC pipe, all the irrigation pipes that are along all our river systems and things like that. Something you can grab from the shoreline and reach out and assist them to grab onto. If it's floatable, even better, like sticks and logs and things of that nature that gives them some kind of buoyancy to hold on to. So we talk about the reach method. So if we can reach to them with something, awesome. The throw method is our throw bag method. They reach out 75 feet, some are 100 feet. We can throw something to them. Even if it's not able to help them, say, retrieve them, is that we're throwing them a life jacket or throwing them in the old terms, a Type 4 life jacket is a square seat cushion that Grandpa had that everybody sat on, and what we didn't know was a life jacket, but it is a life jacket, and it's going to keep you buoyant, and they're usually red or blue and white, and the rings that are on the boats and stuff like that, those are Type 4s, and those are throwables as well. We used to have a rescue disc that had a 100-foot rope on it. They've stopped making those because it's like a Frisbee. You hold on to one end of the rope and you throw the rescue disc, and it's a hard Frisbee. And so if you...
Ow.
I've been hitting that by one. I don't feel very good.
So if you skip it on the ice or whatever, they've stopped making that because they realize that it's a pretty good projectile. So the reach, throw, and the row. So we're gonna either inflatable raft, or we have the power boats, or we have a couple different rescue type crafts. We have the stand-up boogie boards, or the paddle boards, or the wake surfing boards that you see in the ocean, the body surfing boards. Mm-hmm. We use quite a bit of that stuff for. So we're gonna paddle out to them. And then the go rescue is the most dangerous. That's where I'm going to go up and make physical contact with you. I'm going to swim out into the water, or the civilian's going to swim out into the water, and that's the most dangerous because when that person's in fight or flight mode, they're drowning. And I can give you an absolutely terrible story out of American Falls on 4 drownings, where each one went in and drowned the next person, and then as that person went in, they drowned the next person, and then as the next person went in, that person got drowned, and then they left a boat full of kids. And all the fathers and the grandpa dead at the bottom of the lake. And the go method is the most dangerous for the rescuer and for the victim and for the civilian, because you're introducing yourself now to the cold water. You're in that cold shock environment. Your muscles are in that cold. And so if you're not meant to prepare for that or not suited for that, we all carry dry suits and neoprene wetsuits. So as we get into the water, we're not experiencing that cold that victim is. And so the reach, throw, row, go is our rescue priority, and it just really depends on the scenario. So there will be times where we have stripped down to our pants and our duty clothes and jumped in the water with our life jacket on and gone after victims. It's not the best, but sometimes we will risk.
You got to do what you got to do.
We will risk our lives to help others, and I can give you several stories of that where we've had deputies holding on to the victim in their life jacket, staying in the mid current, staying safe, waiting for the boat rescue to come, just keeping the victim up and out of the water, and they're in their full uniform in a life jacket, but they always have a life jacket on. We don't have too many. I don't think we ever had anybody going on a rescue that didn't have a life jacket. So we supply all our patrol deputies with life jackets in their vehicles for that reason, because we have so much water in Bonneville County.
So, like, we do get a lot of, especially on waterways stuff, a lot of bystanders and people that instinct would be there's an emergency, someone's in, I need to do something and jump in and save them. And you know, for the most part, we don't see stories like what happened in American Falls, but anything can happen. But for general, you're going to dive in, you think about those things, or emergency happens, you wonder what you're going to do. You know, the best advice would be just kind of take half a second and take a breath and kind of see what your surroundings are and see what kind of hazards are there, so you're not creating more of a hazard yourself, or
being a secondary victim.
We've had a couple stories in East Idaho where you know, a canal, an irrigation canal, where that's got pumps that are pumping out water. Yeah. Those pumps are run by electricity, and someone has gotten electrocuted because there's some short in it. And someone goes in to save that person, they're electrocuted, and the same kind of chain reaction of things. And we've had a couple down through town here where in the wintertime a pet has fallen in or fallen through the ice, and someone goes in after to rescue the pet. Well, the dog gets out on its own downstream, but the person ends up drowning because they fell in the cold water and everything.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes that's, instinct, reflex, whatever you want to call it. It's hard to kind of train to that, right? You don't
Nobody
know.
wants to see their dog drown.
Yeah.
But we don't have a lot of dog drownings. We have a lot of people drownings.
Yeah.
Dogs are a lot better equipped for that
as they
than
get
we
out
are.
of it. Yeah,
Exactly.
they're able to
And
grab
once
that
they
ice.
Insulated.
get out on their own, you can take care of them. We get crashes of vehicles that end up in canal. We just had one
This morning.
this morning. I mean, it's not often, but it happens. But canals are pretty swift running water, and you add other things in there like culverts and that. And so you get a vehicle in a canal with that water or in the moving body of water, they can move. They don't necessarily float, but they can move. And so you've got to be careful you don't get yourself pinched in between
People
the wrong
don't
places
realize
of that
how
car.
powerful water can be.
Or we've had a couple rescues underneath. The car goes in, floats down, and it's wedged under the canal bridge or something. And it's a difficult decision to stand there and wonder what you're going to do if I'm going to just get pinned in there and stuck underwater myself or whatever. So, common sense kind of prevails, and sometimes you can only do what you can do. Sometimes you got to do whatever it takes.
Yeah. With that kind of in mind of like realizing your situation more, like if I were somewhere and there was a water emergency, my instinct would be to call for help because I am not a good swimmer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm also a very small human. So I don't know how much, even like if I could throw them something that could help them float, that would be perfect.
Yeah.
That's
Help them stay above the water.
Yep. Give us a fighting opportunity. I mean, we're trained in the swiftwater rescue, and not only us, but the fire departments, all the local fire departments in our area are all trained in swiftwater rescue, and so we understand the dynamics. And a lot of times we'll approach from the downstream side for we don't get pinched into a situation. And so, and there's a lot of things to that rescue, but we always want to be on the downstream side of any problem because we don't want to become what we call the strainer. Water flows through, but solids don't. And so as water's flowing through and it's creating all that force, and we can talk about force on legs versus force on hips versus force on your chest. As you get deeper in that water, the water's pushing and putting more pounds of force against you. The bigger the object, even more force. And so a boat or a side of a car, or anything like that, the force amount on that object is huge. And so we really like to be downstream of it. That way, if a problem happens, we can clear of it and we don't become trapped into the problem.
That makes sense.
You can at least get out and circle back.
You can swim out.
I would say most of our water emergencies are probably somewhere where there's some sort of current, significant current.
Moving water.
Yeah.
More so than your standing body of water like Palisades or Ryrie. And the ones we have there, on the lakes are, a boat crashing into another boat or something like that.
Skier getting hurt, being pulled behind the boat.
Yeah.
Human error.
Mostly human error. We have very rare issues.
And you get people caught in the weather too. So Palisades is pretty big. And when that Idaho weather can change in an instant, even if you're looking ahead and planning for the weather, a significant wind can make that real choppy and toss a boat over.
Henry's Lake is really bad for that.
Big wind events. American Falls gets big waves. Big waves, 4 and 5 foot waves, and a lot of times over the side of the boat or over the top of your boat. And
Nope, never going there. Ever.
We had 3.5 foot waves.
When I was a kid, we were at
river.
Twin Lakes down by Preston.
One place.
And gust of wind hit the boat, and I was sitting in the boat 1 second, and then I wasn't in the boat anymore.
Then you're wet. Yeah. And
luckily, another boat saw us and came over and grabbed everybody out and helped us pull our boat back over to shore. But just instantly.
It happens on the water so fast.
When I put news releases out about water safety and I talk about those things, so I brought Mike because he's expert on all the details on all the water, but really one of the biggest things I tell people is if you just have emergency preparedness in mind, if you're thinking ahead, what do I do if this happens? What do I do if that happens? If you're at least putting some thought to it and building safe habits into what you're doing, it's just like wearing a seatbelt in your car. Lean on the side of safety, and if you're at least thinking about it, you're way ahead of someone that's not. Of
full
course,
panic mode, jumping in, thinking they're going to help, and then they realize they're in trouble.
Yeah.
and then we have two problems that we're dealing with.
Yeah, but we're kind of talking about this, and it sounds like all our waterways are the most
Doom and
dangerous
gloom.
thing in the world, right? And it's just you've got to respect that, and you've got to plan ahead, because we've got tremendous outdoor recreation in our whole
on my days
part
off
of the
is a lot of
world.
times on the water, either
Yeah.
floating
Me
to South
too.
Fork or fishing in Ryrie or whatever it is.
So there is a ton of great fun and things to
be
have
prepared.
and to do. It's just, putting some thought into that stuff ahead of time can make a huge difference in having fun or having your day completely ruined.
Respect it and know what it can do.
Yeah.
And be prepared for it.
Yep.
A lot of we average from May through Memorial through Labor Day-ish. We're about one water rescue type incident a week, if not more. But early
We've
in
had
the
6
season,
so far.
we're climbing high already and
Mhm.
and just barely into it. And a lot of those are mechanical things or people taking boats or watercraft or trying to swim in places that just aren't meant for that. And early in the year, you get people trying the boat out for the first time and working the bugs out, and they're going to have an issue, and current takes them down and they're stuck. But it's in large part, it's people that aren't thinking ahead, aren't prepared. They're not familiar with the equipment or taking the time to understand how currents work and reading water and those kind of things.
So if there is an emergency, someone calls for help, what are kind of the best things to tell the dispatch?
So as
That's the most helpful.
a first responder, dispatch is going to be trying to triangulate your location, and we use a couple of different systems for that. Our big one right now is What 3 Words. It's a GPS program that's pinned in through dispatch, and it gives us What 3 Words is a GPS location within a 3 foot by 3 foot square area. And so it'll say like peanut butter, orange, cat, 3 words, and we can see it on our phone, and it puts us in a 3 foot radius of where you're at of the 911 call. And so that'll tell us as an emergency responder, am I responding to the South Tourist Park boat ramp? Am I responding to the Sunnyside boat ramp? Am I responding to Blowout up in Palisades? Am I responding over to Calamity in Palisades? Am I responding on the South Fork? A lot of times we have 2 boat ramp between 26 miles of water. So if it's the Kona boat ramp up by the Kona Valley up in Swan Valley, or the next one down, the big one that I could put a big boat on is Byington, which is 26 miles downstream.
Yeah. And there's only one spot in between that, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's Wolf Flat, or they call it Fulmer Boat Access.
Yeah.
But the road is really slow, and it's hard to get a big access. So we usually like to have areas where we can take over an event and put a lot of trucks and boats and trailers and communication equipment. And if we have to land a helicopter, whatever the case may be, those are our what we call command, incident command. And so we choose big areas, and like currently we're at South Tourist Park, taking up that park as a command spot. And so location, last point scene. Last point scene is huge. If we have a drowning or if somebody's in the water, we want to know exactly where they are. So if I know they're there, I can't put it in the forebay because I'd have to cross over the falls. So I've got to go down. So I know where in my head as the first responders or the dive team commanders, whoever's coming, they know exactly where they need to set up downstream. On the reservoirs, what area, and then as a response, you're going to have either Idaho Falls Fire or Swan Valley Fire or Central Fire District responding to some of the water areas, and they're going to be spooling up their stuff as it comes in. All the waterways in Bonneville County are controlled by are monitored by the sheriff's office. That's who we're in charge of the waterways. And then each of the fire departments within those districts have swiftwater rescue teams and the ability to help that. And so and stay where you're at. Don't walk away from the scene. If you're the caller, please stay. We call it the responsible party. Stay right there. Let us come to you. Let us get the information. We can put a cone where you were standing. We can put a cone, and that'll help us reference where, because it's kind of like the telephone game. Mm. If we don't know where you're at and we get third-hand information and then we get fourth-hand information, and by the time we get it or the next team gets it, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's missing. So if you can stay right where you're at, be a great witness, give us all the information we can, and that way we can document all that stuff for us. And then as the situation unfolds, we know what we need to deploy. Yeah. We can launch helicopters, drones.
I've seen the drone in action.
The sheriff's office has a great drone team. The city of Idaho Falls has a great drone team, and a lot of their guys have them in their cars right there. A couple of our drone operators have them in their cars, but we have very large drones that have thermal imaging and 40 times zoom and can last for an hour up in the air and stuff like that. Communicate, can talk back and forth. They can communicate out of them and respond and all kinds of things. And so
that's been in our time in this business.
Yeah, we didn't have that
kind
when
of
I first
resource
started.
right there has been so beneficial.
Yeah, we didn't have
we
any of
send
that.
them out on all kinds of things.
I was on the Warm Slough a few years ago, and one of my friends went in, got caught under some willows.
Mm-hmm.
She ended up popping up, but when we got her to the side, she wasn't breathing.
Yeah.
We got help there. We got her breathing again, but we were sitting there and it was like, well, how long are they going to be, just wondering. And a drone popped up over us, and I was like, guys, everybody wave their arms now. And
So somebody gets
search and rescue walked through the brush, and they were like, I'm glad somebody saw that.
Yeah, the drones they're a great tool and asset to our teams and to the community. They've given us bird's eye view of stuff we can't see before.
Yeah.
And they're not going to necessarily be able to reach down and pick you up and pull you up yet. I mean, I think that technology's coming. But they're a great asset for our first responders, safety and just being able to check the area up quickly.
So if you're the person that sees the emergency and you're the one, no one else is around to call, or you're making that call, 911 is gonna be your first attempt at what you're gonna do. And a dispatcher that picks that up is gonna ask you what feels like a million questions, but they're trying to narrow that down and they're trying to get the right resources to where you are and start going from there. So it's important to hopefully know your surroundings. They may use that information from your phone. And we have a lot of places that are limited in cell service. Sometimes texting 911 will also work. If you've got a Starlink type setup or something, that's probably going to work. You might have to go somewhere to get a signal or whatever, but your first go-to should be 911 or if you have a way to communicate with other people because you're limited and, if you've got, the
Garmin
little,
inReaches.
Yeah, or little two-way radios or something, if you can get to someone that you can at least relay information to get out. And hopefully you can do that while you stay there until someone gets to you. If you've got to go away to get signal, it's important to get all that information and at least give a place for us to come and find you.
Maybe like market or something.
Yeah. It sounds weird, but take your shirt off or leave a coat where you're at or a shoe. Leave, something where you can go right back to where you were standing. A lot of our water emergencies is they'll walk away or they say, oh, he's just right off the shore.
Yeah.
And it's hard to judge out in water how far distance really truly is. And so what could be 20 feet to you is actually 150 feet out. And so it's really important describing that scene, and then when that deputy gets on scene or that responder looking, and then they can give us accurate information because everybody knows that when you're looking out across water, what seems like 100 feet could be 300 feet, and that really narrows our search.
If that 911 call is coming from out on the water, out on the lake, out on the surface, making that call from there if you can, I mean, that's going to give our dispatch a plotted point, a GPS point that helps us, and that kind of ties in with that what 3-word system.
The
and
American
how that
Falls
works.
drowning was really imperative to cell phone signals.
Yeah,
when we lost 4 down there,
and it's over time it's been getting better and better, and it narrows in.
Technology's changing
really good.
Every about 18 months, something new's popping up.
But that's real important is get those resources on the way, even if we have to turn some of those resources around. What we tend to do in a response is the initial report is someone's in the water and we're getting limited information. Someone's on the phone taking that information while someone else is, and they're typing that in a computer and someone else is on the radio sending that out. That's how our dispatch works. And it may vary a little bit depending on what dispatch you get. Depending on where you're at, you may not get us in our county, you might get the neighboring one. But, someone's getting at least resources on the way. Even if the situation changes, while we're spinning that up, we're going to start activating our dive team and water resources pretty quickly if we know there's people in the water and we know general where, and we'll start, fine tuning that as information comes in. But even if we do a lot of turning that stuff around when it's done, But we would rather have it on its way than wish we had it on its way 20, 30 minutes ago, right?
Yeah.
That
So,
makes sense.
but that's reliant on people calling in.